Mom's knife slid through the Thanksgiving turkey like she'd rehearsed the moment her whole life. The room was warm, golden, full of chatter, right up until she smiled at me in a way only a mother who's judged you for years can smile. I didn't know yet that a single sentence would split my family open. One breath, one pause. And then the cruelty landed so clean everyone else laughed before they understood what she'd said. I didn't cry, argue, or break. I just set my fork down and stood up. And the strangest thing, Mom thought she ended the night. But she had no idea what I had already discovered. My name is Luna, and if you'd met my family from the outside, you'd probably think we were one of those picture-perfect Midwestern households. Old money, polished smiles, the kind of people who never raise their voices in public. Our White House in Eden Prairie had been in the family for generations, and my mother Marjorie liked to remind everyone of that every chance she got. She carried legacy the way other women carried perfume, something she sprayed on herself before stepping into the world. I grew up believing that legacy meant love and stability. It took me years to understand it actually meant control. I'm a senior accountant, numbers, patterns, quiet logic. I like things that make sense because so much of my childhood didn't, especially after my miscarriage 2 years ago. The morning it happened, Mom held my hand in the hospital and whispered prayers over me. But later, when she thought I was asleep, I saw the flicker of relief in her eyes, as if the universe had corrected something, as if I had nearly ruined her perfect bloodline and fate stepped in to save her reputation. After that, she didn't look at me the same. Elise, my older sister, became the shining star, the one who had done her duty. She was the golden daughter, soft curls, pastel sweaters, always with her son Leo on her hip. Mom adored Leo. Sometimes I wondered if she loved him more for his existence than for who he was. My husband Ethan tried to shield me from most of it. He's gentle, patient, the kind of man who listens before he speaks. He had to miss Thanksgiving this year for a business trip, and I could already hear Mom's voice when I told her. Work before family, she'd muttered, as if the sentence itself proved how flawed my life was. Driving to the house that evening, snow drifted across the windshield like soft warnings. Minnesota winters have a way of making everything quiet. Streets, trees, even the thoughts you try to outrun. But as I pulled into the long driveway, I felt something else under the cold, a heaviness I couldn't name yet. Inside the house smelled like cinnamon and roasted herbs. Relatives buzzed around the kitchen. Elise floated between rooms, glowing with that effortless charm Mom worshipped, and everyone acted like this was just another holiday. But something in me knew this night wouldn't stay quiet. The dining room looked like a magazine spread, linen napkins folded into perfect triangles, candles flickering in silver holders, the turkey resting on a platter so polished it almost glowed. Mom stood at the head of the table, framed by the chandelier like she was posing for a portrait. She loved moments like this, where she could pretend we were the family she'd carefully curated in her mind. I took my seat across from Elise. She was smoothing Leo's hair, whispering something that made him giggle. She didn't look at me, not really. She never did unless Mom was watching. Mom lifted the carving knife, and a hush settled over the table. Every year she insisted on carving the turkey herself, like a tradition passed down only to women she deemed worthy. I'd once imagined that might someday include me, not anymore. Her smile widened as she pressed the blade into the skin. "I'm grateful for our family," she announced, looking around at her audience before letting her gaze land squarely on me, "and for the purity of our line." I felt the first sting, then sharp-pointed familiar. She sliced again, slower this time, savoring something I couldn't yet see. "Thanks to your miscarriage," she added warmly, "our family line remains pure." The room froze. Then the laughter hit. It wasn't nervous or awkward. It was real, full, unbothered. Fingers tapping the table, forks clinking, someone snorting, as if her words were a quirky joke everyone understood except me. My throat burned. I stared at the plate in front of me, the grooves of the china blurring. I didn't look up when Aunt Dora laughed loudest, or when Cousin Jenny whispered, "Bless her heart." I didn't need to. I could feel their eyes on me like heat. And then Elise leaned into the moment. Still stroking Leo's head, she let out a soft, satisfied sigh. "One real grandchild is enough, don't you think?" Her tone was playful, almost sweet, which somehow made it worse. She tilted her head, waiting for approval, and Mom rewarded her with a proud nod. Something inside me shifted, not broken, not shattered. Clean. Precise. Like a lock clicking open. I didn't cry, didn't argue, didn't give them the performance they expected. A quiet settled over my body as I slid my fork onto the plate. The tap of metal against porcelain sounded louder than the laughter. Leo stopped giggling. Even Elise's smile faltered for half a second. I pushed my chair back, stood, and smoothed the front of my sweater. No apology, no excuse. Mom blinked, confused. "Luna, sit down, we're praying next." But her voice sounded far away, as if I were listening from underwater. I looked at her. Really looked at her, and saw the truth for the first time. She had never wanted me to belong, not unless I fit her version of purity. Without a word, I walked out of the room. And the strange part, they all thought I was retreating, but what I was doing was beginning. The living room was dim except for the glow from the window where snow drifted down in slow, steady flakes. I stood there, hands pressed to my sides, breathing through the sting still burning behind my ribs. Their laughter echoed faintly from the dining room. It didn't follow me out here, but the memory of it did, like fingerprints smeared on glass. Luna. I turned. Mark stood in the doorway, shoulders tense, eyes full of something that wasn't pity. It was fear, the quiet, private kind. "Can we talk?" he asked. I nodded because his voice wasn't the voice of someone coming to check on me. It was someone carrying his own weight. He stepped closer, running a hand through his hair. I need your help. Something's wrong with Elise. At any other point in my life, I might have defended her, but not after that dinner. What's going on?" He hesitated, then exhaled shakily. "I want to get a DNA test for Leo." The room seemed to tilt for a second as meaning settled in. He kept talking, voice low. "She's been distant, defensive. She hides her phone, leaves the house for church meetings I can't verify, and—" He swallowed hard. "He doesn't look like me. I didn't argue with him. I didn't reassure him. I simply asked, 'What do you need from me?' 'Help me do it quietly,' he whispered. I don't want to accuse her without proof." That was what did it. The steadiness in his voice, the way he chose truth over drama, the way no one in this family ever had. I felt something tighten in my chest, and for the first time that night, it wasn't anger. "I'll help," I said. His shoulders sagged in relief. After he left, I returned to the dining room doorway, just long enough to watch them from a distance. Mom laughing, Elise leaning into Caleb, the assistant pastor, far closer than propriety, allowed Leo happily chewing dinner while the adults performed their holiday roles. And suddenly, the patterns clicked. I was an accountant. My brain lived in patterns, and the patterns here were glaring. 3 days later, I sat in my home office long after Ethan's flight left for his business trip. The house was quiet, just the hum of the furnace as snow tapped against the windows. I opened my laptop and began digging, not out of spite, but clarity. If Elise was cheating, there would be signs, and there were. I started with church records because Elise's meetings always tied back to church activities. Pulling the financial statements wasn't hard. I helped audit them annually. At first glance, everything looked clean, but I wasn't looking for obvious discrepancies. I was looking for habits, patterns. Every month, a small but steady amount had been transferred to an account labeled under generic charity support, and every time the transfer occurred the same week, Elise claimed she was volunteering. Next, I checked her personal spending patterns, not illegally, but through what Mark willingly shared, payments, bills, recurring charges. A hotel in Minneapolis popped up every few Wednesdays. Quiet, inexpensive, forgettable. Hotel stays, charity funds, a pastor known for being overly supportive with certain members. It was too clean to be random. And then, as if summoned by my thoughts, Elise showed up at my door that Friday morning. She didn't knock softly, she hammered. When I opened the door, her face was blotchy eyes wild. "You're looking into me," she hissed. I didn't deny it. I didn't confirm it. I just stepped aside. "Come in." She stood in the living room, wringing her hands. "Caleb told me someone's been asking questions about the church records. About us." "Us," I echoed quietly. Her voice cracked. "Please don't tell Mom. Or Mark. please." There in her desperation, the truth spilled out, fragmented confessions, years of lies, payments she'd begged Caleb to hide. But before I could ask anything more, my phone buzzed. A hospital number. When I answered, the nurse's voice was steady. "Your mother has been admitted. Possible stroke. You and your sister should come immediately." I looked at Elise. Her face went pale. The house fell silent around us except for the whisper of falling snow. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and overheated air. Fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above us as Elise and I hurried through the sliding doors, our boots tracking in melted snow. She looked like a child, small, shaking, gripping her phone as if it could anchor her to a life that was slipping from her hands. They directed us to a waiting area outside the ICU. Mark was already there, sitting stiffly in one of the plastic chairs, elbows on his knees, fingers laced tight. When he looked up at us, something in his face had changed. Not anger, not confusion, acceptance. "Did they say anything?" I asked. He shook his head. "Just that she collapsed at the church. Someone left an anonymous letter at the office. It upset her." I didn't have to ask what letter. I knew. Elise sat down slowly, like her bones could barely hold her. Is she going to be okay?" Before anyone could answer, the double doors opened and Ethan rushed toward us, still wearing his coat from the airport. He must have come straight from the plane. He didn't ask what happened. He just wrapped his arm around me, grounding me in a way nothing else could. The doctor arrived a moment later. "Your mother is stable," he said. "A mild stroke. She'll need monitoring and rehab, but she's conscious." A collective breath released, but peace didn't last long. Mark cleared his throat, then pulled a small envelope from his coat. The results came in. Every sound in the room seemed to disappear the hallway footsteps. The machine beeps even Elise's trembling breaths. Mark opened the paper. His voice was steady. "Leo isn't mine." Elise let out a soft broken sound, something between a gasp and a sob. She pressed both hands to her face as if she could hide inside them. "I'm sorry," Mark whispered. "I wanted to believe you." He wasn't yelling. That made it worse. Ethan's arm tightened around me. Elise folded in on herself, and I felt the room tilt, not with surprise, but with confirmation. There it was, the truth everyone had tiptoed around for years. After a long minute, Mark stood. "I need to see her," he said quietly, nodding toward the ICU. "We all do." We followed him down the corridor. Mom lay in the bed, pale, frail, her right hand trembling slightly as she tried to adjust the blanket. When she saw us, her eyes sharpened, not with love, but with fear. The kind of fear found in people who've spent their lives protecting a secret. "Luna," she rasped. I stepped to the foot of the bed. "We know." Her gaze flicked to Elise, then back to me. Her breath caught. "How does it matter?" I said softly. Tears welled in Elise's eyes. "Mom, please, tell them it wasn't what it looks like." Mom's mouth opened, but the words that came out weren't comfort. "It was for the family," she whispered, "for our name." Her voice grew hoarse. "Elise made a mistake, a terrible one, but exposing her would have destroyed everything, our standing, our reputation. So yes, I hid it. I fixed it. Fixed it." Mark echoed quietly, disbelief cutting through him like ice. She looked at him for the first time. "You are a good husband, a good son-in-law, but our bloodline stop." I said more sharply than I intended. "Just stop." The room went still. "This isn't about legacy," I continued, stepping closer. "This is about control, about how far you'll go to pretend this family is something it's not." Her jaw trembled. "I did it for you girls." "No," I said. "You did it for yourself." Elise sobbed into her hands. Mark stared at the floor, breathing carefully, like he was trying not to break. Before anyone could speak again, 2 members of the church board appeared at the doorway. One cleared his throat. "We need to discuss the allegations." Mom flinched. They guided us to a conference room down the hall. The long table was cold, the overhead lights too bright. Caleb wasn't there yet, but his absence only made the tension heavier. One of the board members looked at me. "You filed the concerns." "Yes," I answered. I provided evidence. I placed the folder on the table, payment patterns, bills, recurring transfers, tied to charity funds, all pointing back to Caleb and Elise. I didn't embellish, didn't dramatize. I let the truth speak. Another board member reviewed the papers slowly, grimly. "This is serious misconduct." The door swung open. Caleb entered, face pale but posture rigid. He looked at Elise first, her swollen eyes, her clenched fists, then at me. "You," he hissed under his breath. "You did this." I met his gaze evenly. "No. You did this the moment you thought no one would ever look closely." He opened his mouth again, but a board member cut him off. "Pastor Foster, your position is suspended effective immediately pending further investigation." His composure cracked. "You can't." "We can," the board member said, "and we will." Mom's voice shook. "Please don't. It will ruin our family." "Your family did that," Mark said quietly. "Not them." Elise dissolved into tears. Caleb stared at her, realizing he couldn't save himself or her. Not anymore. By the time the meeting ended, the decisions were clear and irreversible. Caleb removed. Mom stripped of her leadership roles. Funds audited. Scandal documented. Reputation shattered. We walked out of the hospital conference room not as a family, but as people finally forced to face what we'd been running from. Outside, snow drifted against the windows, soft and steady. Inside, everything cold had finally cracked open. Mom was moved to a rehabilitation wing a week later. The woman who once commanded every room now struggled to lift a spoon. Without her church title, people stopped visiting. The phone that used to buzz endlessly with requests and praise sat silent on her bedside table. When I visited, she tried to apologize, but her words came out thin, fragile. I listened, but I didn't patch anything up. Some truths don't need fixing. They just need to be seen. Elise's fall was harsher. The divorce was finalized quickly, and Mark won full custody of Leo. She asked me for help, wants money, a place to stay, anything, but I couldn't step back into the role she expected. "You need to rebuild your life," I told her, "not borrow mine." Mark and Leo visited us a few times before we moved. Leo was quieter now, softer around the edges, but he leaned into Mark with the kind of trust that can't be faked. Ethan and I found a home in a smaller Minnesota town, far enough to breathe, close enough to visit those who mattered. Our adoption paperwork sat on the kitchen counter, a quiet promise of the family we were choosing for ourselves. A year later, on Thanksgiving morning, I stood by our new kitchen window and watched gentle snow settle over the yard. No shouting, no forced smiles, no talk of bloodlines, just peace. Warm coffee and Ethan's hand resting over mine. I used to think family was something you were born into, but now I know it's something you build choice by choice, truth by truth. If you've ever had to protect yourself from the people who should have loved you most, share your story. And if you want more stories like this one, stay, subscribe, and come back for the next chapter.